now. So
Okay.
we've upgraded 2 Moodle sites and
Excellent.
integrated Turnitin, and saying to Michael Durrant, I've got about 20 custom roles on that site now.
Oh,
So
oh boy.
busy.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, that's good.
Good. And yourself, what are you up to?
I've sort of switched roles slightly, like under the Blackboard umbrella, but I'm more a adoption specialist.
Okay.
So I actually do a lot more work with academics now, which is what I
Happy?
like. Yeah. So it's right across everything, like Moodle, Learn, but it's more focusing on like pedagogy, and people have technology, making sure they're maximising it for teaching and learning. So unfortunately it's with under the Blackboard thing, but it's more the work itself, which is doing a lot of stuff with academics around using technology for teaching and learning. So that's what I love.
You've got to change the headspace before you can take
Yeah.
advantage of the technology.
Yeah.
So there's still that challenge,
Yeah.
regardless of which system
Well,
you're using.
that's it. So I'm just having a ball at the moment. Like, you're just speaking to so many academics, everything's different. Some of the engagements are long, some are short. So it's been really, really good.
Oh, glad to hear it.
Yeah.
I didn't get to see you up at Moodle Meet this year.
No,
So.
we'll catch you around here today, tomorrow.
Yeah, and I'm
I'll
going
catch
to
up
the
after.
dinner tonight. So
Yeah. That's fine.
please do, because
Yeah,
I'd
yeah.
love to catch up with you.
Yeah.
More. You're still based. It was Newcastle, wasn't it?
No, Adelaide. But I'm.
Oh, seriously?
Yeah, I'm in
Okay.
Adelaide, but I based at home and I'm not travelling, so that's one of the perks. I said,
Yeah, the travelling can get a bit harsh, yeah?
very.
Yeah. It's not even the frequency of it, it's the unpredictability.
Yeah, that's exactly right. But no, that's fine. I'll catch up after. I'll have to duck out for a call, but I'll.
No, please do.
There's just a few people still wandering around out there. We'll just give them a couple of 2 more minutes and we'll get started.
It's generally considered inappropriate to lean out the door and shout, "Come on, you lot."
Military, I don't think they'd blink an eye.
I'm going to sit down until you're ready.
Yeah, we'll give it another minute.
Cool. It's beautiful light rooms, aren't they?
They are.
Just gorgeous.
But I was delivering with the windows behind and I couldn't see people's faces up the back because they're in shadow. So it was a little bit...
Can we drop some on the
Yeah, you can.
I'm just wondering if it's a little bright.
Kill the glare a bit.
It is nice though, isn't it?
Yeah.
Oh, I've just come out of a dark lecture theatre.
Oh, have you? Hello everybody. We've just got a few more coming in and then we'll start. Are you popular, Lindy?
You're from ACN.
Yes, Australian College of Nursing.
There's a health move.
There is indeed. I'm presenting there as well.
I was wondering whether you were.
On something related but not quite the same.
Not the
I
same.
try very hard not to do the same presentations at
Yeah.
conferences because people are coming for different reasons. So.
I'm from the Australian Nurse Teachers Society,
Oh, okay.
and so we're sponsoring one of the main sponsors for it. This is the first. We've been trying to get Moodle into the hospitals and
everybody, we
the
might get
community
started.
and health
Thank you
centres.
very much for coming to this session. We've got 3 speakers
Lots of
today.
problems. So this
I
is
would love
actually
to
the
talk
first.
with you more.
So I'm going to be the timekeeper, so I'll make sure they're all on time and keep moving. First of all, we've got Lindy Klein, who has been around Moodle for quite a while now. She's grown a lot in the last probably 5 or 6 years since I met
Absolutely.
her. And now she's working at the Australian College of Nursing and she's going to base her presentation on that. I'll leave it over to Lindy.
Thank you, ma'am. Hello, folks. This is a delightfully full room, but I always start presentations by saying I talk a million miles a minute, and I talk even faster when I'm nervous or when I'm excited. I leave it to you to work out which one. If I'm talking too quickly, can you please just wave, flag me down? Rugby crash tackling is probably not appropriate, but if you think it's necessary. It's a short presentation, but we're looking at something, even though this is Moodle based, I'm trying to make sure that it's broad enough that it covers online learning generally. So some of this stuff will be very Moodle focused. Other parts of it, take the principles and apply them a little more broadly, and they should still be useful. So let's define what we mean by difference. When we say we're designing for difference, that can mean all kinds of different things. So for me, it means a couple of different things that are overlapping. Here we've got our different users, our students, our educators, and in the Australian College of Nursing's space, our external tutors. Not every organisation will have external tutors, but for us it adds a complexity that we absolutely have to be aware of when we're designing. These are wonderful people who are experts within their given fields, who also have educational expertise. They are hard to find. They often do extra work outside of the hours that we expect of them, and they are not really well versed in the Moodle system as it is. So if we change something across the whole system, or if it's inconsistent from one subject or course to another, we're setting up hurdles for our tutors to get through. And many of them, and you guys may be in the same kind of space, when you come to a problem that's an online-based problem, you immediately go, am I missing something? These days I'm about 6-ish years on now into using Moodle every day. So I ask less, is it me, and more, what's Moodle done now? Oh, sorry. Okay. Within those different users, we also have different user abilities. I think it's really important to work out they're not necessarily one or the other of these. They're going to be on a spectrum within it. And they might be on that spectrum for one aspect of a particular technology or the content you're trying to teach, and completely different for something else. So we may have, at the Australian College of Nursing, we teach nurses. So most of them have already gone through a bachelor's degree type program to get to where they are today. Some of them are international students who may be having trouble with English as a second language, or be culturally and linguistically diverse, depending on just how far along the PC spectrum you are. They may be really competent within the particular knowledge and skill set, but when they get into our system, they're not confident with it, and that may come across as being not competent with it. They may actually be really technically competent. It's just a new system and they haven't got used to it yet. For us, we need to be able to design so that if they're not yet confident and not yet competent, the system is still engaging enough to help them get started. Seriously, I'm going to have issues with this mouse. I apologise in advance. Okay. A third element of difference for the Australian College of Nursing, we offer 3 different layers of programs. So we offer continuing professional development programs. These are often short burst sessions. They might be an hour-long webinar with quizzes block-ended either side, so you get pre- and post-knowledge evaluation. They might be self-paced modules where a student goes through with absolutely no tutor or educator available to them, and they have to figure out how to get through the content themselves. That really takes some expert designing. On the other side of the spectrum, we've got our tertiary education programs, so our graduate certificates for nursing in things like breast cancer or paediatrics, very specialised areas. Or our training and assessment programs, so things like our Certificate 4 in Training and Assessment or Diploma of Nursing, which adds on more to what they already know, allowing them to get more into depth in their specialty fields. But each of these have different requirements. CPD needs to be able to issue their certificates as soon as the student is done. Ideally, I would have the same for all our other programs, but CPD really needs it because they're short burst programs, so there's that expectation from a student that the result will be as quick as the course was. For our longer programs, like our graduate certificates or our advanced diplomas, the graduate certificate is going to be graded from pass to high distinction and have different requirements for how those assessments are going to work. Our training and assessment programs need competent or not yet competent, which is a completely different way of structuring our assessment and the materials that support it. Somehow, those all have to come together so that the one student who may go through any one of those, or all 3 of them, gets a sense of the same sort of experience with us. So, What I'm looking at for the rest of this presentation then are some basic overarching design principles that I find useful. And I do stress, this is me personally. There are some very good debates between myself and my other two instructional design colleagues, so we don't always agree on these principles. Hopefully we'll have some of that discussion here today. This image is courtesy the Moulton College online, which has a design principles course in Moodle, so I kind of liked the irony of putting up something from a design course about design. Notice the biggest one there is consistent. Now, I can't stress it enough. If you're inconsistent in how you deliver things or how your system behaves with your students, you set up a lack of confidence in what they're going to expect to happen next. And that erodes their ability to do more within your systems. So my first principle here, work from the known. This can be a little bit tricky. Work from what you know your students already are going to know and be comfortable with, and oftentimes this isn't information that you control. So the best example of this, and I was discussing it with some colleagues over lunch, our students, when we were running on Moodle 2.5, have an assigned user ID. That's their student number, or their staff number, or their tutors could have any kind of number, because our student management and user management systems are still kind of outdated. There is no consistency in how those user IDs are assigned. Some of our students have multiple user IDs within the system and don't know which one to use for here. I can't resolve the pre-existing systems. I can try and make the one that I have some control over better. So Moodle 2.7 introduced the ability for users to log in with their email address. When we started semester 1 this year, within I think a 2-day period, we had somewhere in the vicinity of 70 password requests, support requests. This is students either phoning or emailing us going, I can't get in, I don't know what the username is, I don't know what the password is, the system's broken. Our support desk is 2 people based in Canberra who can reset a password, and me. That's not a lot of support for a college that has, at any given time, about 2,000 students online. So that had to be fixed for the next semester that we came up with. By semester 2, I went, we're upgrading to 2.7. I'm not asking. So our students sign up with their own with their own email address. If you're assigning them an institutional email address, this isn't going to be quite as useful because they may just forget that as well. But when it's an email address that they voluntarily give you, then you can hopefully assume that it's a legitimate address. And I say hopefully assume, knowing full well some of our students gave us very dodgy email addresses. I'm an optimist, what can I say? The same principle applies when you're getting down... Oh, sorry, yes?
So doesn't that validate by sending a ticket to that address and requesting a reply?
I'm sorry?
So the system doesn't send an email to, like if I said my email was, Fred Nurkat, whatever, and just was something random,
Yep.
I would still then be able to use that random string?
No, yes, you would be able to use it, but you wouldn't be able to reset your password to it because there's a confirmation link that Moodle sends out when you try and reset your password. So some of them, we had 3 password reset requests at the start of this semester, so that's a drastic reduction in support time. But we still have a few special people who haven't quite worked out they need a legitimate email address. We are, as an organisation, we are finding better ways for enrolling students so that we get legitimate information about them. So again, this is about putting processes in place that try and make sure the data we get is useful data. Sorry.
So you're using it for password reset capability, but if you actually required it for initial login as well...
For initial login, it wouldn't be a problem. It would work with any string email address, as long as that... I think I'm missing your question.
The validation, so you have to, if you had to go through a hurdle requirement, send an email to fred.nerk, and if that bounced, I could never log in because I hadn't given it a valid email address in the first place.
No, our enrolment process captures the email address outside of Moodle. So that email address is uploaded via a CSV file. If you were having students try and create an account on the site with that email address, yes, you would run into that issue. Sorry, I misunderstood where you're coming from. When we're getting down into the online course space, and I'm trying to be less Moodle specific with this, When you get into that online course space, you still need to try and come back to that principle of work from the known. So if the known is the home icon takes me to the front page of the site, then for the love of all things holy, don't let it take them to the front page of the course sometimes, and the front page of the site when they're not already in a course sometimes. We actually did have that at one point. That inconsistent behaviour meant that when we were getting support calls, we would say click home thinking that's a known safe point. We know where they are when they click that button, and find that we didn't know where they were. That's not helpful. From a very specific Moodle perspective, you can log in as that user. So you can then see what they see, and that does help you work from the known when you're trying to support them. But by that stage, you've already missed the objectives of your designing principles, in my opinion. Principle 2, store it centrally, display it contextually. I'm talking very specifically about linked information here. A lot of our academics will upload PDF versions of rubrics or policy documents that are organisation-wide documents, but they've created their own localised version of it. We're talking version control here, in no uncertain terms. So that when a student says, yes, but this course's rubric 1.8 says I'm being graded on X, and my policy version says they're being graded on Y, I have no recourse. If they're going and contesting their grade, then we have to go with the one that they were given at that point for that assessment, even if it differs with the institutionally approved version. This has happened enough times that it's caused issues for us as an organisation. So part of my tasks back in February was to go through the site and weed out all the individualised versions of documents and create them in a centralised repository. It's not a sophisticated repository, it's just Moodle's file system area. So basically we've created a folder in the back end of our server, we point Moodle to it. The really key thing here, if you're trying to encourage your educators to support you in this endeavour, and I do, I am one administrator, I have about 30 to 40 educators at any given time. They can be enormously helpful, or not. Really key thing here, create an alias or shortcut to the file. Don't make a copy of the file in this context. Link it back to where it already exists, so when I have to update it, because at some point I will, I update it once and it populates automatically to everywhere it's being used. Who can spot the problem with this scenario? Sorry? No? Although it's a good observation.
You might have
You're on the right track. So part of this is version control of the course as a whole. When we move from semester to semester and we update the link in one place, then all the previous semesters have also been updated. So when we're trying to make sure that when we look at a snapshot of a course, it is as it was back in July 2013, and I've automatically updated the link for everything. Oops. I'm pleased to say I caught that one before we made the changes to the July shells. That was kind of important. So in terms of auditing and making sure that your systems are maintainable, this becomes really important as well. How you set up the file system in the back end of things is crucial. What we did was to create time-stamped folders within the repository area so that we have the July set of rubric documents and policies and the February set. And coming up to next year, we'll have February 15 set. It's not hard, but it does require you to think about the ramifications of what you're doing before you get there. Because if you don't, it's a little difficult to undo it.
Have you thought about an electronic or digital repository?
We would love one. We have no money. Which is unfortunate. Yes, I argued for alfresco. We don't have the capacity at the moment. Hopefully that will change. So principle 3, consistency. This one actually appears 3 times in this set of slides because it's important. Consistency has 3 different variants. There's appearance. And I'm particularly proud of this little innovation, and I don't know how many of you are Moodle savvy enough to pick what this is. There are a couple in the room who should be able to pick that there's something very special with that page. This is a course homepage, and there is a dead giveaway in the top right-hand corner as to what is sitting in the centre of that page. block. Moodle traditionally can't put blocks in the middle of a course page, except when you're running with 2.7 and you start adjusting the layouts and the CSS within the theme. This is fantastic. I'm excited by it because I'm excited by little Moodle things, but also because previously our navigation elements would jump around. So when someone switched from a computer device to a mobile device, the navigation block that was pretty and up on the top left-hand side in the computer jumps to the bottom of the page on the mobile device. That's worse than useless. That's really confusing for our students, and they're not going to think to scroll to the bottom of their device to find the navigation elements. Navigation should be right at the top. So here, by putting the block in the central area, it stays at the top. By making it a block, it persists throughout the course pages into activity pages like forums, like quizzes, all the rest of them. Where topic 0 only persists on the front page of a Moodle. And I promised I would try and keep this generally Moodle neutral, but this particular one is very specific to Moodle and really kind of funky. This is about to save us quite a lot of time with our students. The other thing that's unique here, styling the buttons. So a lot of academics want their course pages to look visually appealing for their students, and that is a noble and ideal thing to be aiming for. Except that what's appealing for an academic isn't necessarily appealing from a style guide perspective for an organisation as a whole, and occasionally is not very appealing from my perspective either, but I'm willing to accept differences of opinion there. To make this easier to maintain and more uniform across the system, we use CSS-styled buttons. So these are not images. This is the HTML5 browser rendering that display behind the text. By using CSS, we can get that consistent across the whole site. This can be difficult to implement with staff who go HTML. That sounds like programming. I don't think I want to do that. So you may, if you want to do it yourselves, you may need a little bit of help getting it in there. I'm sorry, was there a question there, sir? No? Okay. Moving along. If you put your hands up, I will assume you're asking a question. All good. Consistency is important in behaviour as well. How many of you have used Moodle's activity auto-linking filter? Just give me a sense. How many of you have heard of that? Thank you, Kate. Okay. How many of you use Moodle? Sweet. We're at least halfway there. That was about 80% of the room by rough guesstimation. So the activity auto-linking filter. Filters in Moodle allow Moodle to look at text that you have put into it and turn it into something else. The something else may be a link to a glossary entry. It may be a link to an activity that you've already created, which is the activity auto-linking filter. Provided you have kept the name of the activity exactly the same when you type that name again to refer to that activity, it will create a link to wherever you create it within the course, which is both fantastic and really annoying. Occasionally you don't want that auto-linking turned on. There is a way to manually remove it, but you kind of need to be switched on to see it. From an academic, I say academic, I should say educator perspective, if you have to keep learning how to turn it off, then you're probably going to start pushing to just turn it off holus bolus. The problem we had at ACN, when we roll courses over from one teaching period to the next, we either do it by creating a new shell and importing from the last offering, or taking a full backup of the last shell and restoring it to a new shell within the site. The problem with that is our academics were hard linking to all the activities within their courses. So a student would get to the July version, which we'd rolled in from February. They'd click the link to the activity and be taken to the February shell and told that they weren't enrolled in the course. This caused some consternation with our students who went, I'm sure I am, I paid for it. I can't do what you're asking me to do. Why can't I do what you're asking me to do? The problem was the way the links had been put in. The solution we're moving towards is using the activity auto-linking filter intelligently. Part of the resistance to using it is the activity auto-linking filter opens links within the same page. A quick poll, how many of you would prefer your browser to open the link in the same page, in the current page you're on? Only a couple. How many of you would prefer it to open in a new page or a new tab? Oh, I'm going to have such discussions when I get home.
Depends on what you're talking to people in with WCAG or whatever. They keep on saying screen readers don't like pop-up windows.
No, they don't.
Why can't you get the screen reader to handle pop-up windows?
There is a very complex answer to that question that I don't have time to go into, but you're quite right. Screen readers don't like pop-up windows. In something that I find very confronting, the Australian College of Nursing went, well, we really don't care about the accessibility of screen readers. When I was told this, I went, say what now? Accessibility is kind of important to me. I would like our site to be really accessible. My colleagues advised me they're nurses. If they can't see really clearly, we have another kind of problem altogether. If they can't read clearly, we have a really much bigger problem altogether. So that's fine. We don't need to worry about screen readers. They're going to be able to read. Personally, I would still love to design in such a way that our courses are fully accessible, but I accept some of the things that I can't change. I do say some of them. Others I keep bashing my head against. In terms of web accessibility, after a couple of days' research, we found that website design encourages opening links in a new window. In the same window, which is what activity filter auto-linking does. It will take you in the same window to the next activity. You can always use the back button to return to where you were. And it seems to be the case in terms of website design that is a better protocol than breaking with the back button and not allowing your user any way to return to what they already know. So back is a way to go where I know what I was doing, but if you open it in a new window or a new tab, I'm not necessarily sure where I am anymore. Personally, I think it's 6 of one, half a dozen of the other, but these are the little things that can trip our learners up. So we like to try and get them right and at least consistent across the site. How you choose to deal with it, obviously it's going to differ based on your understanding of your students' needs. We chose to go with opening in the current window because that helps activity auto-linking to work the way it's designed to work. Less tweaking for us, less maintenance for it later on. The more tweaks you add, the more maintenance you incur later on. Ooh, putting a consultant's hat on for a moment. That filter's been there since before 1.9. Ultimately, it's an institutional setting. Ultimately, your site administrator controls everything you're able to do. But you can approach them.
We had to turn it off because of the quizzes. So if you were using words in quizzes that you had anywhere else in your glossary, it was actually giving
Hey, here's the answer.
to the quizzes. So we had to, in the end, we ended up turning it off globally, but you can turn it on for certain activities.
So you may find the default is that it's off, but you can go into your course settings. So from settings block, course settings filters, you can turn on activity auto-linking filter for your course or for a specific, say, a book resource. Quite possibly. I'm going to come back to that in a moment. Can I just, not to embarrass you, but I want to draw the attention. Yes, in the last 5 minutes, my goodness, that went quick. I want to draw attention to that sort of sigh of regret of they were being creative, we can't anymore. I'll come back to that. Okay, so consistency in terms of instruction. So that's that third tier of consistency. It can be really difficult to get this one in when you don't have an instructional design team. Our team is becoming more of a gateway between students and educators. So we are able to start filtering and putting consistency in terms of instructional stems and that kind of thing throughout our courses. And that's really helpful. But when you've got a university with over 100 academics and they all word it their own particular way, this one may be just something that we have to accept is not going to be perfect. Even with our team of instructional designers though, and I have to grin because I wrote these too, I realised last night as I was putting the final touches on, that instruction is not actually consistent. This is what I get for doing it far too late in the evening. Caring for your ecology. So the ecology of your online learning environment, and this is zooming back out from Moodle and trying to speak